Arrow Season 5, Episode 10, Who Are You? Mid-season premiere, and, right off the top, I was like, okay, they kind of went through the Laurel thing really fast. It was like, no big deal. The legends came in, they saved her life, they used the device on the ship. It saved her. No big deal. They saved her life, and they dropped her like 4 or 5 months later, 5 months down the line. And I was like, alright, that actually makes a lot of sense. That's what they do. They do weird stuff like that as far as their time travel. They let the shows go on, and then they have to drop them later on. They can't just be like, alright, we saved you here, and then we drop you back in the exact same time. They've actually done that in Legends of Tomorrow. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. I was surprised how, nonchalant about it they kind of were. I was just like, yep, this is what happened. And I was surprised. I was like, okay, well, they brought her back to life. Let's see where this goes. And then they throw in a little twist, and we find out that this is not Earth 1 Laurel Lance. This is actually the Black Siren Earth 2 Laurel Lance, who is the supervillain who actually has the Black Canary powers. And I thought that was really cool. I was like, alright, I like that twist. We find out that she's actually working with Prometheus, who doesn't do too much in this episode. He has, the ending sequence is where he really steps it up, because he's actually in that scene where he's fighting all the heroes, but other than that, he's kind of a background character for this episode. He threatens Laurel, or Black Siren in this episode in that one scene, and then after that, he shows up during the action sequence, and then even during that, he fights them a little bit, and he kicks Oliver through the wall, and then he's gone. And it's like, it's me or Felicity kicks him through the wall, and he takes off, and it's like, alright, he's playing the long game. That's his whole point, is he wants Oliver to suffer. So, we still don't get too much there, but I still liked the way they did it, and of course they ended up keeping her around. Instead of sending her back to Star Labs, they kept her, Black Siren, in an Argus lab, or Argus lockdown. So I thought that was pretty smart, and I thought that was what they were going to do to eventually go down the route of Black Canary. And then, they talk about it and stuff where, the statue gets destroyed in this episode, and Oliver mentions, I never kept my promise. He tried to, and then of course Evelyn ends up being Artemis and, a villain. And so he has to figure out who he's going to get to carry on the Black Canary name. And then we get our nice little transition at the very end where this random woman has the Black Canary abilities. So I thought that was interesting. She takes out the two guys, and she seems to be almost really neutral, almost just an anti-hero sort of character based on the promo that they showed, where she's fighting against the team, but she's also not really attacking them or anything like that. It seems like it's just kind of some, typical hero misunderstandings where they end up as enemies and then they become friends. So I'm curious to see how they do that, and why she's even in town, because unless she was already in town, I don't know, maybe she was just in a different part. But I like the way they did that. I was like, alright, that's cool. It's very simple. It did surprise me, if I'm being completely honest. I thought they were going to just hold it off, and at some point, seasons down the line, they would eventually bring in Black Siren, and she would be, Black Canary. They would actually convince her to turn good, and Oliver still has that hope that he can do that for this new version of Laurel. So I was like, okay, that's where they're going with it. And then they just flat out had the transition, nope, here's the actual person who's going to take over. So I was like, that's cool. I'm fine with that. We get a new character in the show. We'll see how that plays out. As far as, what type of character she truly is. She seems like the tough type of character based on the scene they gave us. But I'm excited to see how she blends with the rest of the team, and, what kind of causes the chaos of them simply trying to propose an idea like, hey, we want you to join the team, and how that ends up becoming a huge issue. So I'm excited to see that. We also have Diggle in this episode, his storyline. And he's teamed up with the DA in this because Oliver asked him to help out. And I wish I could remember his name, but I still have that theory that he's vigilante. He just has to be. He was really cool in this episode. He was trying to help Diggle, and he's like, okay, this dude's, he's pulling all the stops to get Diggle, and this guy is a high-ranking official. Why in the world would he come down here personally to get Diggle out of here? So he's like, oh, well, I need you to have this signed and that signed, and he's like, oh, got it, and he kind of pulls it out on him. He's like, okay. And he's like, is there anything else you need? Because I could have you disbarred in 30 minutes. And they get to the end, and he's like, alright. He whispers, hit me, and he's like, okay, well, under this section and this penal, this penal code and all that stuff. And I love that. I was like, this guy's really cool. I really like him. Still convinced that he's vigilante, though. Just the way that he does things. when he talks with Oliver, he's like, yeah, so this guy died, he was just like Prometheus, and we think the Green Arrow killed him. I'm just gonna cover it all up. Yeah. So that was pretty much it. He was just like, yeah, if this happens where people think that he's Prometheus, chaos. If people know that Green Arrow killed one of the anti-crime unit members, chaos. I'll just cover the whole thing up. No big deal. I'm out of here. I was like, I'm pretty sure only like Oliver, who is an actual vigilante, or someone else who's a vigilante, would have that sort of thought process. And it was just interesting. It does make sense, even outside of being an actual vigilante. But I'm just convinced that that guy has to be a vigilante, just the way he does things. But he was cool in this episode. He helped Diggle out, at least for a while. So we still have to find out where that's going, how they're going to get the evidence to actually stop the general, or whatever his position is in the army. We're going to have to figure out how they're going to get any sort of evidence. Because after they stole the nuke, there's been nothing to it. Like, Diggle's been arrested. That's been like the only side of that storyline until this episode where the guy actually, he finally came back into it. So I'm curious how that's going to play out, but they're taking it one step at a time. This one was definitely focusing on Oliver and him trying to get some sort of like redemption with Laurel, even though this wasn't, the same Laurel. So I like how that played out. I actually like Felicity, like her emotional turmoil in this episode where she was so mad at the beginning because, she was upset, of course, and it's like she's happy that Laurel's back, and then, she's doing these tests and stuff, and it's like, okay, everything matches up and stuff like that. And then things become chaotic, and Oliver is just continually going for it, like, we have to trust her, we can see how this works, and we can try this. And I understood why Felicity was mad. It's like, it didn't really come out officially until later in the episode where she just flat out finally said it. Like, she teamed up with Prometheus, and that was the main thing. It wasn't even really about Oliver wanting to help her, but that's kind of how she was trying to convince him, until she was just like, screw it, this is why I'm super pissed off. She was working with Prometheus, who set up my boyfriend to get killed by you. So I thought she had a good emotional roller coaster in this episode. Curtis also had one too, where he's freaking out about being a hero and how he's lost everything that he's wanted, and Renee has to kind of convince him, like, you have to focus on what you can do and not what you can't do. So he was actually kind of cool in this episode. So he was cool. Curtis had a nice moment, and ultimately I like what this episode did. I thought it was pretty good for the way they did everything with the storyline, and the flashback was good. Very minimal flashback. There wasn't too much to it until we got to the ending sequence, because the whole thing was him being beat up the whole time. And I'm like, okay. He talks about I believe he said, like, certain circumstances, it's like honey or vinegar or something like that. It was like honey and poison or something more drastic than honey and vinegar. I was like, okay, so my thought process was he's going to use that ideal to get out of this situation and say, screw it, I'll join you. And then eventually he still manages to escape from, the group. And that doesn't end up happening at all. A bunch of people get killed off, and here comes Talia al Ghul. So I don't know, I didn't know that she was coming into it this early. I knew that they were bringing her into the show, so I was super happy about that when I saw her. I was very surprised, though, that it was so early. I didn't know it was even going to be this season. Like, I knew they were talking about it. I was like, okay, she'll be in there, and I thought it would be like maybe a reference to her at first before she was actually in it, but it was like, nope, she comes in. For whatever reason, she saves him in general, and my guess now is that Prometheus learned from her. The crazy specific move that like blew Oliver away before the little flip. So I thought that was very interesting. Also, they made another note to something I'm sure we'll see in the flashback when Oliver he throws the dart, and I forgot what the toxin was, but it was supposed to like slow him down. And he was like, you could say I have an immunity to it or something like that. I was like, all right, there's something to that. The way he blocked and everything, and I believe that was just to show like he wasn't sluggish or anything. He was still able to block and stuff, which was really cool. I was like, man, I never even thought of that. Someone could just put their arm up, it would just wrap around their arm, no big deal. And I never thought of that. All the times I've seen him wrap people up, if someone just did like this, it would have just wrapped right around their arm and be like, oh yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. That's the easy way to stop that if you really think about it. And it was funny when he did it. I was like, huh, that's really simple. And all these seasons, it never even remotely occurred to me. You could just put your hand out technically, and it would just wrap right around if you were able to catch it. And you'd be totally fine. It might hurt when it zips around your hand and locks together, but ultimately you'd be fine. And we see like a million people get caught by that thing. It's like, wow, that's the simplest way to get out of that. It just never occurred to me. But I did enjoy this episode. I'm excited to see what they do with Prometheus. I hope he shows up a bit more in the next episode, but considering the focus of it, I kind of doubt he will. I'm sure he'll have some important part in there, of course, as the main villain of the season, or at least the second half. So that's just my guess, but it's kind of hard to say what they're going to do and what stories they're really going to focus on, because like I said, the Diggle stuff, we don't know how big of a focus they're going to put on that storyline. So there's just a lot to it, but I did enjoy this episode. But I am excited to see what they do with the Black Canary stuff. Definitely excited to see what they do with the Talia thing. That's probably my number one thing. Like I said, I was blown away that she showed up so early, because I thought for sure it was going to be way later. But all around, I thought this was a pretty good episode. I think I like, the emotional stuff was good. The action was actually pretty good. It was kind of minimal action. It was really simple, because most of the action was just basically, canary screams and just people being tossed all over the room. That was like 90% of the action in this episode, if you really like go through it. It was people trying to do something and then just be like, and then everybody gets knocked down in like 2 seconds. So still good action though, but I enjoyed this episode. We'd love to know what you guys thought about it, so please comment below and know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And I actually want to know what you guys think they're going to do with Talia al Ghul. She is basically the well-known character amongst, the League of Assassins. Everyone knows Talia al Ghul and Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul, or no, it's Ra's. It's supposed to be Ra's. And no one knew Nyssa, and that's kind of why they used her at first. And now that they've done that, now we have Talia. So I'm very curious how that's going to play out, because she's always the one that like takes over, because she's the older sibling. So I'm very curious how they're going to do that storyline. But I would love to know your theories on where they're taking her, what they're going to do with her character. How does she even know who Oliver is at this point? That's a big question, because with them being on the island, there's not much to that's like, oh, this is very widespread. So I'm very curious how she knew about him, and why she would care to save him is a huge question. So we'd love to know your theories and what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.